But let's go ahead. I'm going to play the Dragon Box. Then I'm going to play the original broadcast audio. We will be muted. Take a listen closely. Dragon Box first.
まあそう言うなよ。いいか？まずこれが普通の状態だろ。
Okay, now broadcast audio.
まあそう言うなよ。いいか？まずこれが普通の状態だろ。
Why does Goku sound like why does Nozawa sound like she recorded that yesterday?
Right. The comparison I've made to hearing, the Dragon Box audio to the broadcast audio is like when you've jumped into a pool or you're swimming at the beach and you come up and your ears are clogged with water and someone's talking to you and then all of a sudden the water comes out of your ear. Like that is what it feels like to me to listen to the broadcast audio.
Yes.
It is unfortunately not quite as good or as pristine as if Toei had kept the original audio reels, which were stored on basically like a magnetic tape, like almost
It was like a big ass tape, right?
Right.
I've seen pictures of it online.
Yeah, and it's it's really unfortunate that it was all thrown out. And we as like Dragon Ball fans are just extremely lucky that like every single episode of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT was recorded, by at least one person, and shared with us. Because I'm sure, and I think we'll get to it at the end in terms of like Americans making recordings. Like I'm sure, like 100 people have recordings of like Goku turning Super Saiyan, but like every episode, even like the first episode of Dragon Ball where like no one knew for sure that was going to be a big hit, was recorded, and that audio is better than the audio that Toei has now for these episodes.
So to quote myself on Twitch, as fans, we've been getting fucked over, and Seed of Might has kind of saved the day. And it wasn't. I mean, the audio was an amalgam of different people, and like you said, this goes all the way back to '86. And at first, I know the Z one was collected first, but then I remember hearing like, oh, they got original Dragon Ball, and that surprised me because Z, I believe, was rebroadcast a few times. I know it was on Animax just a couple of years ago, which is a network in Japan that shows old anime and even new anime. But original Dragon Ball, because like you said, this wasn't like Dragon Ball was a proven commodity. It was new and it was the first time airing. And so when people complain about the Japanese audio sounding weird, I can't really do anything about that because I understand where they're coming from, but they don't know about the broadcast audio. So, and now, can you go a little bit deeper as far as why the fuck these assholes threw away the damn tapes? Because it wasn't just, I think Sailor Moon had the same problem, right? Didn't Sailor Moon have the same issue?
I'm not too familiar with that show. I know Hokuto no Ken or Fists of the North Star had the same issue, and a few episodes have come up for broadcast. But like honestly, and full disclosure, I don't work for Toei. I don't know anyone, but we can kind of like reasonably make some assumptions that really it was just like a cost saving measure. Like those drums, of audio, they take up space, in whether it be some warehouse or somewhere else. And, I guess whoever at Toei at some point made a decision like, hey, we've aired the episodes, home media really wasn't too much of a thing. It existed, but it wasn't, like as big as it is now. So like, well, we don't need these, audio reels. We have the audio on the film. And maybe that's something we can look at, a little bit like the audio on film and kind of get into the why, like, why does it sound this bad?
Well, also, I did want to tell the people this. You already know this, but this is for the people. I don't know if you guys know this. I've talked about this a few times, but not on here. In Japan, they never released Dragon Ball Z on home video except for the movies. If you didn't watch Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball on TV when it aired or catch a rerun or record it yourself, they never had a home. There wasn't like how you have the Star Trek box set where you have all the episodes on VHS. There were, in the late 90s, there were Japanese Dragon Ball fans importing some of the Funimation DVDs because they didn't even get their own home release until 2003, which was the original Dragon Box. So if you're a Japanese DBZ fan, DBZ ends in 96, you had to wait another, 7-8 years to get the show at home. And it's just mind-blowing to me considering how big of a series this is. the audio on the film, why it's bad, and then we can get to some of the video stuff, because we want to show you guys not only the Seed of Might, like sort of how they did it, but also the color correction. But I don't want to throw too much at them at once. So you were saying about the audio on the film, because Dragon Ball. Go ahead.
So I do want to clear up one misconception. So this is not the first time, the broadcast audio has been, presented for a YouTube video. And if you look at the comments, 95% will say like, oh, this sounds great. This broadcast audio is wonderful. You'll get maybe like 5 to 10% of people saying like, you know what, I kind of like the older one better. And I think some of the misconception is that, they'll hear, hey, Dragon Ball is influenced by, old martial arts media. And they'll be like, well, what if the audio was like that on purpose? What if it was made, to sound old, like on purpose, because it's old martial arts? So I do kind of have, I think maybe we could start with the example of like what audio on film like literally looks like, and kind of talk through like why we know, why we know it's supposed to sound this way. Because like, I'm sure you've seen it, right? Like people will upload YouTube videos of an anime and say, hey, I upscaled this to like 4K and 60 frames per second.
And it looks terrible.
Right. But some people be like, oh, I guess this is how it should look. Like the frames were, like lost or hidden on like, no. But so I want to reassure people, like we are not doing that to the audio. We're not modifying it. Well, there is a little modification and cleanup, right? Like, VHS recording, sometimes you have a little buzz, like a little click, like, those issues we've cleaned up. But I kind of want to talk through like how we know why it's supposed to sound this way.
I know exactly what I'm going to pull up, which I'm going to pull it up here for everybody to see. I'm going to pull it up in just a moment. What I wanted to say was just to make sure everybody understands this, because I get this question a lot, and you can go into this as well on the stream. Dragon Ball was filmed on 16 millimeter film. In fact, most television shows were done on 16. The movies were 35. If you don't know anything about film stock, it doesn't mean shit to you, but the higher the millimeter, the more deep the picture is. But of course, the actual film is bigger. Christopher Nolan shoots on 70, which is like fucking like, it's huge. And that's why when you go see, when a Nolan movie comes out, even if you're not into like Nolan's movies, as I don't know who wouldn't be, but like you go see it on the big IMAX so you can see like the detail. So there's a few Dragon Ball Z episodes that are in 35. We can talk about that if you want. It's not a big deal, but Dragon Ball Daima and Super, however, were done in the digital age. This, of course, goes back to Star Wars. When George Lucas was shooting episode 2 of Attack of the Clones, he started using digital cameras, which is very handy if you want to edit quickly, because you can record, throw it in your editor, bam, bam, bam. Every video I produce on the channel is digital. But when it comes to film to this day is significantly better quality. You know what I'm saying, right? We don't want to we want to tell people the truth. So is this the image you wanted to talk about?
Yes. So just to kind of explain like what you're looking at here. So this is an actual piece of film that I own. It is a 35 millimeter trailer to the movie The Iron Giant. And this was a scan done by the folks at Kaneko Video. So congratulations.
So you sent it to them and they scanned it?
Yes. So this is a crossover episode, Seed of Might Kaneko. So yeah, if anyone, just to give them a quick plug, like if anyone ever has like, if you look up like older movie trailers online, they're usually kind of like garbage. If you're like, hey, this is a movie I love, I'm going to go to eBay, try to find a trailer for it. You can send it over, get it scanned, and you will have it like this. This scan is done in a higher than 4K resolution. And that's because it captures a little bit more than just the video.
Believe it or not, there is such thing. Even though I think I think some people think that like 8K, like they're going out buying 8K TVs. The naked eye can't always see it though. It depends on what we're talking about.
Right. So, and that's kind of a common question. And I apologize if, this is going to be a super question that comes up, but like people ask like, okay, what is the equivalent resolution from film to like digital that they understand? And like a sort of quick answer is it's not really 1-to-1, but I have seen instances where for a 16 millimeter scan, you get more detail with a 4K presentation than you do in a 1080p presentation.
Way more.
Right.
Way more.
So a 35 millimeter, like what you're seeing here in this case, would be even higher. And then, you know, like the IMAX, a 65 millimeter, like something Nolan would do, or something like, you know, Stanley Kubrick would use, is even higher. Right. Yeah, exactly. Is an even higher resolution. But
and I want to also tell them, just so you know, if you're watching movies on this or Dragon Ball, like we're gonna talk about Seed of Might, because I do want everybody who wants to see high quality Dragon Ball to check out Seed of Might. But if you're gonna watch it on this, bro, you're not gonna notice that. You'll notice it, but it's not gonna really hit you until you watch it on a big screen. If you got a TV in the living room, if you want to see Dragon Ball, like old Dragon Ball, but look like it was made now, that's the prop. I mean, I'm big on Vanner. I'm big on like video and audio quality. That's why I wanted to bring you on, because like this is, to me, it matters, because Dragon Ball has such beautiful art, and you see so much detail and sharpness when it's done right. So
yeah.
Sorry, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd about this shit.
No, and I'm sure we'll get into like all the video you know, improvements or issues. So just to kind of tie it back to audio really quick. So on this piece of film, right, you have three examples kind of audio. So you can barely kind of see it on the left in red. So that's your Dolby Digital track. And if you could see the full thing, it would look sort of like a QR code. That's a little bit of a newer standard. Like, you know, Dragon Ball wouldn't have that on it necessarily.
I wish.
Right.
But if Toei kept the original, let me ask you a question. If Toei had kept the original tapes from the 80s and 90s, they could conceivably have released Dragon Ball with a 5.1 surround sound.
Well,
it would have taken forever, but right? They would have had to split it up.
Kind of. So the thing with Dragon Ball up to, you know, the original series Z, and then the first, I think, 4 episodes of GT, the audio is mastered in mono. Right now. So it's an interesting question, like, could they make that a 5.1, you know, surround sound track? Like, you know, yes, I'm sure. But, you know, personally, I would like, if, you know, if this mythical home release ever did come out, they would at least include the original, just because, you know, it's going back to Star Wars a little bit. Like, if it were to be surround sound, it would kind of be a new mix of audio.
And all, not to I don't want to derail it too much, but there have been situations where some, for example, Superman 1978 on 4K, there's like 3 different mixes on there, because there are some people who are super big film nerds that like the older mixes better than the newer mixes. With Seed of Might versions, you're going to get the dub Falconer, the dub Ocean, kinda. We'll talk about that in a minute. You're going to get the Japanese broadcast, the Japanese Dragon Box, and whatever else is available.
Right. So just to kind of round out this, so in blue, and it looks like I forgot to label it. It looks kind of like Morse code, almost like little dots and dashes.
The one to the right of the green.
Right. So that one is for you would have like a separate DTS disc, and that's not really the audio; it's more of the timing. But really, where the star of the show is the analog stereo in green, and that like what you're looking at, like that is optical audio. So on a Dragon Ball film reel, like you'll see that, and that's like literally the sound channels. And the only reason I have it as a star, and I'm not going to get into this too much, is like you can actually like matrix 4 channels into 2 channels. A little much, but like let's just say for all intents and purposes,
I think, didn't the Beatles do that back in the day? Didn't they like matrix audio into that's a whole other thing. Music had to do that back then.
Right. So that kind of like that is, you know, in green, like the audio that was captured for the home releases. So like why then I guess it's like, okay, well the audio's right there, so why isn't that good enough? So before we get to the next part, I'm going to kind of like take you through a story a little bit. So have you ever had to call a company, like a cable provider or some other company? They put you on hold, and while you're on hold, they play music for you.
All the time. That's every time they do that, yeah.
Now, do you have any kind of like stereotype or feelings about that music? Like, has something ever stood out to you?
I think the music is supposed to calm you down if you're mad. Isn't that the whole gimmick, that they're trying to like play like happy music? So if you're an angry customer, it calms you down. It just gets me more mad. It has the opposite effect.
Yeah, but how is that music like sounded to you? Like, does it sound good or not so good?
Usually not that good. Usually not that good.
Right, and here's why, because telephones are a terrible source of playing music. So when the telephone standard was kind of developed and becoming digitized, there is a certain range of frequencies that a telephone will capture for audio, and it's about 4 kilohertz, which from like 0 to 4 is kind of the range of human voice, human pitch, which is fine. But when we speak or when we listen to music, you don't just listen to a single pitch, right? That would just sound like a sine wave. Like when you're talking, you have like a bass frequency, but you have all these like harmonics at higher and higher frequencies. On a phone, it doesn't capture all that. On something like a DVD or a CD, you hear up to about 22 kilohertz of audio, which is much higher than the 4 kilohertz on the phone. So that's kind of what happened with the optical audio. If you can show like that first graph I sent you, like it kind of has
one.
Yes, okay. So this is the Dragon Box optical audio for a Dragon Ball Z episode. So kind of just to say what you're looking at, from left to right, it's just each minute of the show, and then the height is how much sound or information exists at each frequency. So you see kind of two interesting things going on. Number one, you're like, okay, it's interesting. It spikes at the beginning and it kind of spikes at the end. What's going on there? So fortunately, Toei, to give them some credit, the first part is the opening song and the last part's the ending song. So they had kept the original recordings of their songs, at least, and they basically put that right into the episode. The unfortunate part is if you look at most of the episode, kind of between the beginning and the end, you get like a really low frequency response. So when you listen to Dragon Ball in official home release Japanese audio, it's almost like you're listening to it like through a phone call. Like it just cuts off all that higher frequency, and that's why it sounds muffled. If you can go to the next one, we'll kind of show what broadcast audio looks like.
This one? Yeah.
Yes. Okay, now this
look at this, bro.
Right. This is the exact same episode as before. And here, VHS audio has like captured this, and it captures those higher frequencies. And that's why it sounds clearer. We're not doing any kind of crazy AI nonsense on the audio. Like this is how it was captured. And some of the broadcast audio was so like thorough and intense that there, people kept track of like different TV stations that broadcast at different like frequency ranges. This one was from Fuji TV, and it's typically considered like one of the best. But now you hear that full spectrum, that full range of audio, and that's really kind of like the secret of like, hey, I know there's broadcast audio, but if for anyone's like, well, how do you know it's good and why does it sound so much better? Like this is why you really capture it at something close to CD audio quality.
You know what's crazy is it's hard to explain this to people, because what you're basically saying is that audio recorded on a VHS from 1986 sounds better than DVD. And you know what's funny about this too? I had an argument with a guy years ago who was trying to defend the Funimation Blu-rays, not the 35th anniversary ones, the previous ones that are like the volumes. And I told him the Dragon Box was better. He's like, how can DVD be better than Blu-ray? So it seems very, what's the word? Like backwards, but it's not backwards. This has to do with the fact that had Toei kept all the audio with the original quality, even if it was like basic VHS recordings, they even had that. But we made a discovery earlier this year when Toriyama died, because they broadcast some clips of Z on television, and it's so that Fuji, I think they were the ones, and it was the broadcast audio, which means that some of the TV stations still have the original good shit.
Right, and that's really the frustration, and it kind of ties back into like why we do what we do at Seed of Might. Like we've more or less like kind of given up on Toei, Crunchyroll, anyone of like putting together a competent release. Like it's just so frustrating to know like these things exist. Toei at least Toei or someone they've worked with has the original camera negatives, Clearly they have maybe not all the episodes necessarily, right? Like we only saw a short clip, but at least some of them.
Right.
And yet, you know, and this is something you've talked about with Daima. Like, hey, I'm not a businessman, but if it were me and I had a new Dragon Ball show coming out, I'd probably want to make some kind of release of like, hey, I'm sure a lot of people want to watch the old show to catch up or reminisce. And yet, for whatever reason, you know, it just seems like they're leaving money on the table and not, you know, interested in improving what they have.
I want to answer this. Todd says, I wish I would have kept my Japanese Dragon Ball tapes from way back. You don't have to anymore because the Seat of Mike versions you can get. We're going to talk more about that shortly. If you get your hands on the Seat of Mike versions now, prepare yourself because you better have a lot of hard drive space, just so you know. And that's okay. Just because the good quality is big, bro. And take that as how you will. But the point I'm trying to make is the Seat of My version restores that good audio. Not to mention, there's something else too. Some of the old Falconer dub audio, a lot of that is somewhat different. And there's a Seat of My, there's that's available because I get asked all the time, like, have they ever put out Dragon Ball Z, the Falconer score? I mean, they're on the orange bricks and they're on the Blu-rays, but people don't know that. But the Seat of Might includes that as like a bonus audio track. So if you want to get nostalgic and watch Z with the dub, you can do that. But that's not really the selling point, if you want to call it that. To me, it's this is part of it, and the color correction. Also, I want to say two things real quick. Chris Sabat, I know for a fact he has the broadcast audio. Now, he has an older version, but in 2016, he was given the broadcast audio. I'm not going to say who gave it to him. It wasn't me. And he said, and I told him, I said, the next time they release DBZ, are you going to put it on there? He's like, I'll try. They put the 35th anniversary Blu-ray set, wasn't on there. And I was pissed. Now, I don't know if he tried to put it on there and they said no, or if he just forgot about it because it was old. So he's got copies. I think he's got WAV files actually. But the story that infuriates me is the fact that this broadcast audio was presented to Toei Animation Japan and they rejected it. It's like,
and I don't know, like, I don't, you know, I'm not a lawyer, especially not with Japanese law. I don't know if there would be any like legal concerns of like, hey, you know, do we have to pay, you know, the person who captured this on VHS? So maybe that could be a concern. Maybe it could be something like arrogance, like, well, you know, we don't trust.
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Because let's not forget, when the green tint was pointed out in Superhero, it was, hey guys, there's a mistake here. Oh, get fucked. We know what we're doing. Like, that's arrogance to me, bro. It's not like the fans are trying to tell you how to do your job. It's more like, hey, we are willing to give you money. I've said this for years. If Toei put out a 1080p Dragon Ball release, if they actually went back and rescanned the film, cleaned it up, did it all over again with this shit, if it costs $2,000, I'll pay for it. I'm sorry. It frustrates me because I tell people like Dragon Ball is actually better than you even realize. And because of these companies, you know. So let's show them one more time. This is the home release. This includes Dragon Box. This includes the Blu-rays. This includes the any
Japanese audio on any
audio.
Yes.
Yeah, including the Funimation ones.
Right. And if anyone's curious, like the English audio is fine for the most part. It is just a problem that was unique to the Japanese audio.
I believe Raleigh Pickens, who directed Kai and Super, he told me that the only issues they had with Z and OG is that the equipment was old. So it wasn't the best possible quality, but you can't do anything about that because you know, it's what's done is done. So this is the way it sounds on the Toei audio, and this is the way it's supposed to sound. This is the way it's supposed to sound. So it's just infuriating.